So here you see this group of works by Naomi, all created in the last year. The artist is based in Tokyo. So she came here to install the show and to the opening and then went back. But all those works were created specifically for this exhibition, for this space. Naomi's work is rooted in a sense of slow aesthetic. So she is showing a way of slowing down in this global culture that is moving faster and faster, which I found is fascinating. So the artist takes a very, very slow process of making. She would first make the clothes. So all the clothes here, you can see are handmade by the artist. She collects the fabrics. This is from a Japanese vintage kimono. And then some are from like American clothes store near her studio in Tokyo. And after she make the clothes, she would wear the clothes and take photo of herself. And based on that image, she would make a digital collage using different sources. So scientific illustrations, fashion patterns, William Morris wallpaper, and taxidermized birds. So all kinds of sources. And she make a digital collage, and then based on the collage, she would paint. So all the works here are acrylic on raw canvas. So she carefully she intentionally used raw canvas, not a primed canvas, because she only wants certain surfaces and textures to be primed. And raw canvas is a very slow process of making because you need to use a very thin brush to fill in the dots little by little. So it's almost like a meditative process. Yeah, you can come closer to see. And the first layer is the acrylic painted on the surface. And then there's another layer on the work. When you observe, when you walk around, you can see the second layer. So to make the second layer, she has to cover the first layer with masking tape, and then use a little knife to carve the edges out, or those like very thin masking tape. So the left out areas, she used plaster to apply again and again to reach this very, very thin layer of more almost like a sculpture on top of the surface. And then she used airbrush or like paint, depending on what she wants to reflect. Then remove the masking tape. So you see the two layers. Here you see a good example of how she blends or kind of elements together. So this background is wallpaper from William Morris around like 19th, 20th century. So the theme of the work, can you guess like what's the theme of the work? Yeah, the theme, like what do you think when you first look at the work? The work is called Bird Collector. And the setting is mimicking a greenhouse. So greenhouse, this concept was developed around late 19th century and early 20th century. And this is like a portable device that allows you to transport plants to different parts of the world. So it accompanies the industrial revolution. So the two girls, they seem to be a very comfortable domestic setting, but they're also in a greenhouse. So the greenhouse, Naomi became very fascinated by this concept. When first learning about it, she thinks there's a contradiction of humans' desire to control the nature, and then the nature kind of grow itself. And she thinks this is also a metaphor for home. So home can be a very safe place, but also become, it refines individuals' freedom to an extent.
So the two girls are the flowers in the greenhouse?
So they are like two girls in a home, or in two flowers in the greenhouse, or the birds that are collected. Also, thinking about this history of the bird illustration is about the same time. So there's all this complicated relationship about human behavior of collecting and this tendency of control and freedom. And then there is also the cultural exchange between the East and the West during this specific time. And Naomi is making a contemporary interpretation of everything. So here we can see the example of her technique again. So those tiles were made in a similar measure as those bands. So they are a little bit, they are sculpture layer above the acrylic surface. So this one is collected by a French collector, so it is going to France. So all of the works here still continue Naomi's motif of greenhouse. So you can see the works, sometimes they seem to be in an open space, or they seem to be in a very comfortable domestic setting, but you can always see this barrier somewhere. So it looks like a window, but then you don't know if we are inside or we are outside. And this image is related to a performance that Naomi attended in 2019 on a rooftop wildflower garden in Greenpoint. And this is a barbecue party, so you can see fire there. Fire is a recurring motif in Naomi's work. In this new body of work, she became very fascinated by fire. So fire has the feeling of warmth, and then it has a strong emotion, and it also carries the atmosphere of meditation. Naomi says she likes to go camping in summertime, and then lights this bonfire and stare at it for a long time.
Mm-hmm. This little piece from here, it seems to be a recurring theme in other smaller piece behind the ball where there's fire. And I just wonder if there's any specific reason for that.
Yeah, it's on the back of that wall, the fire. Yeah, that's a very good observation. And you can actually also see this in that one. So the cave one, Canary Cave, the girl with a lamp and in a cave. So that one has this dropping lines. So those are similar too. Yes, you'll see later, but they all carry a fire. So the fire starts with that little one. And that one is started after a Japanese woodblock print from Shinhonga period called Dancing Flames. So that's also a painting around 1920th century, 1920s, and Naomi made another interpretation. So this band refers to the Japanese woodblock prints. The more modern ones, they start to have this banner on the left corner or the right corner, showing the artist's name or the work title. And Naomi thinks this is a tribute to the printmaking technique and also a modern touch. It's an intentional break of the figurative nature of this work and add some abstraction.
I have a question. Can you explain what I'm assuming that's a window frame. What does that represent when you have nature on both sides? What's her intention?
So she described the party she went to, and that's on a rooftop of wildflower garden in Greenpoint, and on top of a factory. So that was a factory converted artist studio building. Then there's a fire, and then she looked out of the garden. That's Manhattan skyline. And in contrast of the water tower of a water treatment facility, and it's almost very surrealistic. And then she always wanted to paint it until like 8 years, 2019. So 6 years later, she did this work, and she feels she wants to present this surrealistic feeling and almost like walking into a film. So she would first generate a digital image of herself with different elements. So you can see those elements come from all kinds of places. The clouds came from 19th century etching, European etching. And then the mountain come from other digital source. I think they look like the movie. Some of the Paramount symbol. And then she would project this image on the canvas and draw the outline. And when she paints, she intentionally mimic the original source of the image. So there's some parts that's very sharp, that looks like the textile or looks like the tile she used. And there's parts that more blurry, and she wants to show the nature of. She wants to show like the nature is a digital image. So there's this interesting balance between handmade and the digital, and this different essence of images. And when you see those clearly details, you can see they are all dots. So some parts she would apply the prime to make it very, very thin and intricate, and some parts she would just apply paint directly, pigment directly on the raw canvas.
My understanding of when I spoke with her was because these are all like digitally collaged, and also her works kind of tiptoe and look at these different boundaries between kind of like reality and irreality, because she was interested in the greenhouses to begin with, to think of how British people were protecting themselves from like the grit and grime of the city and the industrial kind of like pollution in these idyllic spaces. So you also have this kind of contemporary approach to this idea of now you have like this blending between the digital, kind of like the non-real, and then the very real act of her painting and her like physical engagement with the work. But she does project all of these digital collages onto the canvases before she paints. So I think it is a bit of that nod to these like digital processes that she uses. But this is definitely the most, I guess, surreal or most digital of her works. And you can see that in that like blur of the background.
So on multimedia, it's like balancing like two strands. It's like a greenhouse is like a nature or exterior, but contained within an interior. And similarly, like her process is like it's very like digital, but also like handmade.
This one is similar. You can see a girl on an open space, and then it seems to be a beautiful grass. Then she's looking into a window that still shows that it's a greenhouse, or it's inside or outside. So it's, and here you can see the bird illustration and the aquarium charts, and those little ropes. It shows like a family connection, and also it represents those symbols in Japanese shrines. And also this can be bonds, the family bonds, and also like tie into prevents you from individual freedom. And those two botanic illustrations are part of her series called Thinking About Someone Who is Painting Plants. Naomi visited the botanic illustration exhibition and learned that around mid-19th century, the newly affluent family, when women get some luxury spare time, they develop the hobby to paint botanic illustrations. So Naomi is thinking about this implication that women, even in their spare time, they are confined within home. and also this seems to be creative outlets is actually restrained to certain subjects. So it seems to be a very creative way of expression, but still there's this invisible barrier. So you can see those flowers and plants. They're very beautiful. They're tropical, but then you can see that they're still placed in a greenhouse setting.
Yeah, I think Naomi's work has like a really interesting mix of commentary and also celebration of like female space and like women's work. She talks about how she learned how to sew and cook from her mother, who was raised in a very patriarchal and quite like rigid family. And so as she got older, she started to sew on her own and really enjoyed it as a practice, but then kind of recognized that inherent tension between this being something that was kind of imposed onto women for so long throughout history, but something that she can find creative expression through. So you can kind of see in the early works as well, she alludes to needlepoint and these botanic drawings and paintings that kind of occupied women within the domestic space, but still in a very beautiful way offered them creative expression. So I think that's kind of like a subtle kind of allusion to her femininity and her investigation of femininity within her practice.
Yeah, and this little one is a tribute to the Shihonga, Japanese woodblock prints. So the original print is considered as a national treasure of Japan. It shows the fire and the moth or butterfly. And here Naomi added this band in the bottom that's also inspired by William Morris. And then the backgrounds, you can see it's a dark wood. That brings back to the dark wood in the other painting. So it still implies this connection among those works, and also have also it shows that it's probably still in a greenhouse or an indoor space, or like partially indoor space. And then this another large one of example here shows a cave, and it's called a canary cave. So the birds in this painting are canaries. Canaries are used as a warning signal in coal mining industry. So they are controlled by humans and also just used as to warn the potential danger in the deep mining. But here the girls are setting them free, and then the birds are leading them to this bright entrance or towards the lights. And here around the birds, we can see the technique I was talking about. So it shows a very subtle color and almost like the light. And Naomi wants to show the fire again, so there's candles and different light sources. Naomi didn't say, didn't specify a specific source of image of the case, but in general, she likes this feeling of another confined space, but has a potential to go to bright outlets. Yeah, I think it's almost that, and then we have a tiny painting at the entrance which you can look at. So Gabby talked about this a little bit. Naomi was doing quilting when she made this painting. So it started from last winter, and still she hasn't finished this project. But quilting has this feeling of home. And then you see this panel was divided into two parts. And the bottom part has this image of home, like America or European style home. So Naomi says this represents the Japanese thinking about the ideal of home, and it's also very influenced by the Western culture. So you can see this dress is actually the dress hanging on the brick wall.